Hello, and welcome to the Albright Scholar for January 2023. My name is John Pankratz. I teach history at Albright, and each month it's my privilege to welcome BCTV viewers and residents of Greater Reading to take a glimpse inside our learning community up on North 13th Street, to look at the work being done by teachers and students, and to think about its impact on all of us. Well, it's January. It's an interim period on the Albright campus. There are courses being taught, but maybe not, the campus isn't as lively as it is during the semester. But one area of intellectual endeavor that is very much alive are Winter Acres, Albright Creative Research Experiences. And there are 16 of my faculty colleagues and 19 Albright students who are engaged in funded, special, directed research into a whole variety of topics. I have a list here on my phone someplace. Yes, how parental anxiety affects child eating habits. A viral conundrum. Does ectotromelia virus make a growth factor like protein or not? You may well ask. Digital fashion. Designing clothes and accessories for the metaverse. Wow, that's just a sample. Today we have one of our ACRE teams, our mentor in person, and then the student participant via Zoom, or actually via speakerphone. I'm happy to be joined in the studio here by Dr. Lene Amores, professor in our Department of World Languages and Cultures and a professor of Spanish. Welcome, Lene.
Thank you.
And Jason Tai is here on the phone, and he's a senior doing a minor or co-major in
minor in Spanish.
A minor in Spanish, and you've undertaken a very interesting project together. So welcome both.
Thank you.
Hi, Jason. Jason, let me ask you first. What was the appeal of just spending January doing hard, thoughtful research rather than putting your feet up and relaxing?
Well, I think this actually stems from my interest, or rather my job as a tutor on Albright's campus. So I am also an academic learning center tutor here at Albright, and I usually tutor Spanish, right?
Okay.
And the name of our project, as you might know, is Teaching the Asian Diaspora in the Spanish Classroom, right? So what we're trying to do here is expand the pedagogical resources that we have on hand for Albright's curricula on Spanish courses by expanding the cultural knowledge and assignments based on Chinese, mainly Chinese diasporas in Spain. In
Spain itself. Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. I really love the way that Jason has taken his experience as a tutor. And the Albright Learning Center is just a wonderful part of the campus where older students, more expert students are able to bring younger students along in a particular discipline in which they have expertise. And I think that...
without its difficulties, of course, but I do enjoy my job. But I have noticed that, along with many more, of course, that the Spanish curricula is getting somewhat, I really should not say outdated, but we feel like there should be more of a diversity in the things that we teach about Spain, rather than the same old things that we have been for the past decade or so, using the same textbook.
Or the past century or so. Yeah. Lene, talk a little bit more about that, if you would. The idea that textbooks often, particularly in foreign languages and cultures, attempt to, often perpetuate stereotypes about national types or national ethnicities, and it's really misleading.
Yeah, I call them vanilla brown textbooks, because if you look and you open in any, especially introductory or intermediate Spanish textbooks, the characters, the representation that you have is many times actually a white Spaniard, even in the books that talk about other countries in Latin America, or they choose very light-skinned Latinx people in these textbooks. So
in terms of photographs and drawings.
As far as representation and even the authors and creative artists that they pick. So for students that, Afro-descendant students or students of Asian, especially East Asian backgrounds, there are no representations in those textbooks. So for me, I want to make the classroom a space where there's not only kind of windows where they can see, learn about another culture and the perspectives, analyze the practices and perspectives of other cultures through looking at their cultural products. I also want to look at, I want there to be mirrors so that this class is a safe space, and it's where they can see themselves or people that look like them, and how they've contributed to what we call civilization, and that's a loaded term that I don't actually like to use, but the cultures, the Spanish-speaking cultures. So my research is on contemporary Spain, and so that is where my focus is on the teaching or talking about race in the context of Spain, which has different contexts than Latin America, than the Americas in general, and sometimes there are theories and ideas that are borrowed from the Americas and just kind of used in Spain, but it doesn't necessarily work because there are different historical, economic, cultural context. So that's what I'm involved in. And then right now I'm working on a book project. It's a pedagogical book project, and it's called Race Matters in Spanish culture. Race Matters in Spanish culture. So I'm looking at, one of the chapters is looking at the East Asian diaspora. Okay. And then I'm talking about Black Spain in another chapter. I'm talking about the Roma people, Spanish gypsies, and the idea of Spain as also a racialized, Spaniards as racialized in the context of Europe.
Within Europe as well.
Yeah. So his project fits in that chapter, and then he is going to be creating some pedagogical resources that are going to be linked into this textbook, in this book, academic hybrid pedagogy book with Amherst College Press.
And then future classrooms as well.
Exactly.
So students in the future will be able to see Spain
and
in
shareable
its diversity.
As an OER, so it's open education resources. So I will be sharing that with my colleagues at other institutions and colleges.
Great, and our viewers could tune in as well. Jason, that sounds like an awful lot of work to accomplish in 2.5 weeks.
It certainly is, and we're trying to get as much done as possible within 2.5 weeks. So far, we have interactive biographies that I made in Genially. If you don't know, Genially is a sort of educational resource maker online that you can find, and we have 2 of those so far, which is about 2 East Asian people who were born in Spain. So we had Chek Sai and we have Quan Zhu. Please forgive my pronunciation of Chinese. I have no expertise in Mandarin whatsoever. But we also have interactive H5P videos coming up with Paloma Chen interviews, right? And if you're not familiar with H5P interactive videos, if you're familiar at all with Canvas, you know that we can make videos that have these sort of stop points, right? That you can answer questions. And so we want to take these videos, of course not without citing, of course, and using these videos as sort of educational resources that let students have this open window, as Professor Lenny Morris mentioned, to see their own race in another culture, through the lens of another culture.
Right, and by learning resources, we are not simply talking about looking at pages of a book, but a very interactive thing. Jason mentioned this program, Genially. Say a little bit about this, because I know that you're very good at using software that's emerging and exciting, and finding ways to make that really speak to students.
So Genially is basically it's interactive digital presentations, infographics, and all kinds of, there's things like, for example, games and video games that can be created on Genially, and also escape rooms. So those are really good for history.
Goodness.
So you can create a whole, background and things like that. And it has templates for kind of anything, and then there's already templates with maps and things that you can just put your own content in. And what I like about Genially is you can share the resources and create from other Geniallys that other people have created. So we're going to be creating this and making it editable for others. So if they want to put in their own things,
to their own
yes, and the language level. So for example, maybe we've created at the intermediate, but they want to change the resource and use that same video, use that same information, but at a different level.
Great. And the program allows you and Jason to be in two different places, but literally
working on
share the keyboard and share the same screen and co-creating these resources. So you're not actually doing everything via speakerphone and then trying to write down what he says.
We're on Teams. We're on Teams, and we meet every Wednesday to kind of check in. We have a task list, and then we're checking those things off as we go. So we have more tasks that we probably can complete in the 3 weeks, but so we're concentrating on the things that are that are going to be the most important, and then we'll kind of fix things and see what we have like towards the end, and then do some of the smaller projects. But right now, as he was talking about the biographies, we're going to be working on a photo book of Lucia Sun, who is a photographer, a Chinese Chino descendiente, or a Chinese descendant Spaniard who is a photographer, and she spearheaded or she was a big name in the No Soy un Virus, I'm Not a Virus, which was to protest the anti-Asian hate discrimination that was happening during COVID, where there were attacks against East Asian people of East Asian descent on the subways, on the metro in Madrid, and other kinds of, just narratives and rhetoric by the far right, because there is a political party called Vox in Spain that is kind of their far right, and the way that they kind of paint immigration is not one of wanting a multicultural, multiracial Spain, right?
That's a long-standing rhetorical approach there, the Chinese virus, I think.
So she has these really beautiful, beautiful photographs that she takes. There's one that is very, I know Jason was looking at that's on her Instagram, where there's Chinese descendant Spaniards in a kind of like a family photo, but they have a plastic bag over their heads, kind of like this idea of contamination, like, but also kind of suffocating, right? All kinds of artistic production or just production or by Spaniards of East Asian descent.
Right. So this is really an opportunity to explore contemporary resources, people who are alive and active now in the present day. And I think that's always fascinating to students. When I saw the title of your ACRE project, I thought, oh yeah, I know something about the East Asian diaspora. That's been happening for many centuries. And I thought of places not only in the United States, but also in Latin America, where that East Asian presence has been so important. Before tackling, how recently or how long have you been aware of people of Chinese descent in Spain itself, Jason?
So it wasn't really brought to my attention. Like, I know that there had to be some I guess, ethnic enclave of Chinese people in Spain. You know, ever since I was really kind of cognizant of other countries, you know. But like, I don't think I've ever really been taught about it, right? And that's what we're kind of trying to fight back against. We're not really being taught about these other populations and racial minorities in other countries, especially in Latin America or in Spain in particular, which you're doing right now. But yeah, I have not heard about this until really last year. When so this independent study, this ACRE, stems from the independent study that I did with Professor Lenny Morris last semester. So the independent study came from me not having a Spanish class to do my Spanish minor in. And that's when Professor Melendez came to me saying, "Oh, Professor Morris might have something for you that can get you that Spanish unit next semester."
Great.
That was like, oh my goodness, that was the golden opportunity, and I was so fortunate to have that, right? And like, I kind of wanted to really get into it, and that's why I wanted to pursue this further into ACRE, because we only have 15 weeks, and we only met once a week. Oh wait, no, twice a week. I'm sorry. It's been so long. I know, right? January year.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just been a lot of learning about how there is a Chinese diaspora in Spain, but it is very much a racialized population that does not get as much attention in especially the Spanish classroom, or especially in general media.
Right.
And that's why we kind of wanted to fight back against this with this ACRE project.
Yeah, no, I love that you're doing that. And it's a testament to Lenny's flexibility as an instructor, but then also your ability to dig deep into a topic and really get into it yourself. So this is not simply a class. This is in-depth research, and you're creating new knowledge and new awareness by what you're doing. Lenny, is there going to be an opportunity to look at I know that not all Spaniards of Chinese descent are necessarily creative artists or authors or well-known people. Are you going to be able to get at the experience of more ordinary people who are simply working and living in Spain?
Well, so that is one thing that we are thinking about doing with the MAP project. So looking at the kind of businesses and kind of highlighting. So they are I guess, still not ordinary, but kind of the empresarial, the entrepreneurship of Chinese Chino descendientes in Spain, and looking at those different businesses. And who are the people that kind of started those businesses. So part of that with the ordinary people, but I guess without kind of going to Spain and being able to kind of interview everyone and collecting that information, it's not something that we necessarily can like cite, but there is on the side of, for example, some of the literary texts that we've read, that they talk about the ordinary life. We read a graphic novel that talks about her life living, her life as a Spanish-born woman of Chinese descent, and her parents owned a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant. So those kind of like experiences, and some of the questions that she got, and the typical, kinds of microaggressions that she experienced. And we're reading another text by Chinta Tsai, who is an activist and a kind of a influencer. They also do music, and they talk about all of the kind of microaggressive experiences. For example, even, you know, Pau Gasol, who was a basketball player, during the Beijing game, the game in Beijing, the entire Spanish team squinted their eyes when they went to Spain and took a group photo. So there's a lot of examples of those kinds of microaggressive or insulting kinds of things that happen that is, you know, that no one is saying anything about except for these racialized communities, not only Chino descendientes, but also Black Spain, who's calling attention to, you know, what's happening for racialized people. And that's another thing. In Spain, they use the word racialized person. They don't use person of color because person of color doesn't mean anything. Like, what color?
Yeah, lots of colors.
So racialized because they're racialized by other people, right?
Right,
So racial, yeah, as someone who is racially different from everyone else, I guess, in Spain. So those kinds of things.
That's heavy lifting on the part of the other, because they're all European nations have become a lot more diverse.
Yes,
and
yes,
need to
yes.
recognize
But they're
that
doing a lot of
diversity.
that. Yellow face is very, very still. You see that on TV all the time. So like you can watch a TV show and it's just blatant blackface and yellow face, and all kinds of, you know, just the whole making up as if they, you know, speak Chinese, but they're just saying gibberish. Those exist. And then also, if someone doesn't understand you, one of the idiomatic expressions in Spain is hablar chino, like estás hablando chino, you're speaking Chinese, like if someone is not being articulate because it's a language we don't understand. Like there's so many different kinds of idiomatic expressions. So we are gonna talk about, we're gonna do another task if we have time, but another task with some of the language issues, and I'll be working on that, where there's, like, for example, there's a expression that says, estoy trabajando como un chino. I'm working like a Chinese person, which is supplanted from estoy trabajando como una negra, which is I'm working like a black woman, which would be a black slave woman in the colonies.
Yeah.
Or in Equatorial Guinea, which is one of the ex-colonies of Spain. So like the expressions that talked about that they used to talk about Moors and black people during slavery, they're using those with Chino now. There's also
So historical change, but no progress.
Yes, just a new racialized community.
Dear.
And the other thing that is very different, because there's so many different contexts that are different too. So when we talk about race in Spain, we have to talk about the different contexts that aren't the same as the Americas. And a lot of times it's like, you know, people just want to use what theories we're using in the States or in the Americas, and it just doesn't apply.
That doesn't work.
So
we learned that from Skip Gates' wonderful series on being black in the Americas.
Yes.
And how it's very different in Peru, in Cuba, in Mexico,
that's
in the United States.
Exactly, like that Henry Louis Gates, like the Louis Gates. They need one like that, like being Chinese descendant, you know, in the world. That would be very interesting too. Like.
Okay, well, if
we don't have time for that, though.
You're not going to finish that by January 19th.
As you say,
I realize.
As you see, we started with the title East Asian Diaspora, but we're really doing contemporary Chino descendants
within
Spain.
Great. Well, that's the way research works. We can't do it all at once. We do pieces of it, and then they add up to something significant.
Yeah.
And Jason, that's exciting. I know you're a senior. Do you have post-graduation plans yet?
So we were talking about this during the independent study, right? And Professor Lenny Morris mentioned to me that there's this program called NALCAP, and I forget what that stands for. Let me just look it up right now. So it stands for the North American Language and Culture Assistance Program, which is going to be in Spain, right? So she mentioned to me that I could do this as a postgraduate, I guess, sort of employment opportunity, or at least
Yes.
a resume builder, right? That I can go to Spain for 9 months as an English teaching assistant.
Right.
And that really intrigued me so much that I'm looking at it. I'm going to apply to it as best as I can. And that's going to be, I suppose, my sort of postgraduate plan for the moment. But other than that, obviously, I'm still pursuing digital communication as my major.
Right.
And with that would imply a sort of journalism job, which I'm going to look for alongside being an English teaching assistant in Spain.
Yeah, I think that would just be wonderful. I know so many people who are leading happy and fulfilling and really fascinating lives because they've had that international experience and have lived and worked abroad. And I think working in a society really helps you to understand the way in which it works. So best of luck on that project and on your acre as well. I think we're just about out of time. Oh, we have 5 minutes, so we can chat a little bit more. Lenny, I know you've done other acres in the past with various students. What's the appeal? You're not teaching at a Research One university. You're teaching at a liberal arts college, and
Well, I think part of it is because I'm at a smaller liberal arts college with a smaller Spanish program that I don't necessarily have as many opportunities to teach everything that I want to teach. And since I do focus on race in Spain, the other projects that I've done, the other acre projects I've done, have gone into either post-colonialism or race. So the previous, not the previous, is that the previous? Yeah, I think the previous one that I did was on, with Caitlin. I can't remember. With Caitlin, and we worked on teaching the Equatorial Guinea literature of Guinea Equatorial, of I don't know how to say that in English. Is it Equatorial
Guinea.
Guinea.
Right down there on the equator, actually.
Equatorial Guinea, teaching the literature of Equatorial Guinea and talking in global Hispanophone literature, so including that in the Spanish Peninsular kind of curriculum and at the high school level. So how do you bring in, you know, how do you bring in kind of Black Africans into the context of talking about Spanish literature? Because the literature that they create is very much embedded in the Spanish Peninsular tradition. So the picaresque, you know, the Golden Age, their intertextuality with those texts. But we're not talking about the literature from Equatorial Guinea because we don't even think of it as a Spanish-speaking country, but it is.
But it is.
So, so that's what I worked with my last acre project. And before that, I worked on a textbook project with Alison Ulacki, who is in grad school right now in Washington. And we worked on Nuestra Comunidad Latina, which is an OER introduction to Spanish, looking specifically at Latinx communities in Reading and in Philadelphia, in the Mid-Atlantic, Baltimore. And so, and then also talking about those things about identity and race and, you know, Afro-Latinx and the experiences of U.S. Latinx population, which is another thing that's not in the textbooks, right? We're only talking about the countries, and we're only talking about other countries, but a lot of the experience that our students have are very, or of our Latinx students are very much, you know, connected to U.S. Latinx.
Their experience
communities.
and their languages as well, right? There are significant variation in language.
Variación léxica, which is lexical variation. So making that a part of the curriculum. So yes, how you're saying it is one way. Let's also learn this way so that we can communicate across communities within the Spanish-speaking world.
Exactly. How great, how great. Well, congratulations on this immediate project and now what is a tradition of expanding our resources for really understanding Spanish in multiple worlds.
Yeah, well, so I want to say about Jason, he's doing an excellent job because this is my first time working with someone from digital communications. So he has all of those editing experiences and images, and he knows Photoshop, those things that I would not learn.
and thankfully, he has a cell phone.
Yes.
Sorry about that, folks, but I think it worked.
Yes.
I think it worked. And Jason, I thank you very much for being with us and being available. And best of luck over the next several weeks. And Lenny, again, thank you for joining me on the Albright Scholar. Thanks to all of you as well. We'll be back in another month for another edition of the Albright Scholar. So long.